The grand hall of the Valorian palace glowed with purple light from the twin moons hanging in the night sky. Princess Aris sat at the high table, her silver skin reflecting the light like polished metal. She was tall, nearly 8 feet, with natural armor plates running along her arms and spine. Her eyes were golden, and they watched the humans at the far end of the hall with barely hidden disgust. The humans looked so small, so weak, so fragile. "Father, this is insulting," Aris whispered to Emperor Theron, who sat beside her on his throne. "You cannot seriously expect these creatures to protect our delegation." Theron did not look at his daughter. His eyes remained on the human captain who stood talking with the Valorian military commanders. "I expect you to show respect, Aris. These humans come highly recommended." "Recommended by whom?" "Other weak species?" Aris picked up her crystal cup and took a long drink. "Look at them. They have no natural armor, no claws, no enhanced strength. They are barely 5 or 6 feet tall. A Valorian child could break one in half." The human captain turned at that moment, as if he had heard her words across the crowded hall. His name was Day One, according to the briefing documents. He had dark hair, dark eyes, and a face that showed no expression. He wore simple black armor that looked thin and useless compared to Valorian military gear. At his side was a woman named Hana, equally small, equally unimpressive. Day One nodded once in Aris's direction, then returned to his conversation. "He is mocking me," Aris said. "Did you see that?" "He knows I was talking about him." "Then perhaps you should speak more quietly," Theron replied. His voice carried a warning edge. "The humans have fought in 3 major conflicts since we encountered them. They have never lost." "Not once," Aris laughed. It was not a kind sound. "They fought other weak species, surely. Put them against Valorian warriors and see how long they last." Theron finally turned to look at his daughter. His golden eyes were hard. "You will treat them with courtesy. They are our guests and our employees. The diplomatic mission to Nexus Prime is dangerous. Pirates control half the territory we must pass through. I want the best protection available." "The best protection is Valorian guards," Aris said. "Valorian guards are honorable and brave," Theron agreed. "But the humans have something else. Something our people lack. What could they possibly have that we lack?" Theron smiled, but it was a sad smile. "You will find out soon enough." The dinner continued for another hour. Aris forced herself to eat and smile at the various nobles and diplomats who approached the high table. But her eyes kept drifting back to the humans. There were 12 of them total, all part of Day One's mercenary company. They stood together near the far wall, eating little and talking less. They watched everything. Always watching Dot, it made Aris uncomfortable. After the dinner ended, Aris returned to her private chambers. Her attendant, a young Valorian woman named Kira, helped her remove her ceremonial robes. "What do you think of the humans?" Aris asked. Kira hesitated. "I think they are very different from us, Princess." "Different does not mean capable," Aris said. She walked to her window and looked out at the palace gardens below. "I give them 1 day. 1 day before they prove how useless they are. The Emperor seems to trust them." "My father is wise in many things," Aris said, "but he has never seen combat. He does not understand what real strength looks like." She touched her own armored forearm. "We Valorians are born warriors. These humans are born prey." Kira said nothing, but Aris saw doubt in her servant's eyes. "You disagree?" Aris asked. "I only wonder, Princess, why every report from the border worlds speaks of human warriors with such respect. Even fear." Aris waved her hand dismissively. "Propaganda. The humans want to appear stronger than they are. It is a negotiating tactic." The next morning, Aris met with her father's advisors to review the mission details. They would travel by ship to Nexus Prime, a journey of 6 days through contested space. The goal was to finalize a trade agreement with the Neutral Council, a group of worlds that remained independent from both the Valorian Empire and its rivals. Council of Vareth, a massive Valorian noble with deep blue skin and military honors covering his armor, slammed his fist on the table. We should have a full military escort, not these human mercenaries. The Neutral Council will see a military escort as aggression, another advisor said. A small protection detail is acceptable. An army is not. Then let the protection detail be Valorian. Vareth shouted. The humans are more cost-effective, the economic advisor said quietly. And they have experience in this region of space. Vareth turned his angry gaze to Aris. Princess, surely you agree? These humans are an insult to our strength. Aris met his eyes. She did agree with Vareth, but she would not give him the satisfaction of saying so publicly. Vareth was ambitious and dangerous. Supporting him was unwise. I trust my father's judgment, Aris said carefully. If the Emperor believes the humans are adequate, then I accept his wisdom. Vareth's expression darkened, but he sat back down. Later that day, Aris went to the training grounds to watch her personal guard practice. She wanted to see real warriors, real strength, after enduring hours of talk about weak humans. But when she arrived, she found Day 1 and 3 of his team already there. They had been invited to spar with Valorian soldiers. To assess their capabilities, Aris watched from the observation deck as a Valorian warrior. 7.5 feet of muscle and natural armor entered the practice ring. Across from him stood Hana, the human woman. She was barely over 5 feet tall. She had no visible armor, just a training suit. She carried no weapons. This is absurd, Aris muttered. The match began. The Valorian warrior charged forward with incredible speed. Hana did not try to meet his charge. Instead, she moved sideways at the last possible moment. The warrior's fist hit empty air. Hana struck him twice in the side, then danced away. The warrior turned and charged again. Again, Hana avoided him. She hit him 3 more times, targeting joints and weak points in his natural armor. The pattern repeated 5 more times. The Valorian warrior grew frustrated, angry. He began making mistakes. Hana capitalized on every single one. After 10 minutes, the Valorian warrior was breathing hard, bleeding from a dozen small cuts. Hana looked barely winded. The match was called a draw, but everyone watching knew the truth. Aris left the training grounds without speaking to anyone. Her mind was troubled. What she had seen did not match what she believed. It should not have been possible. That evening, as Kira prepared her for sleep, Aris made a decision. I am going to prove they are weak, she said. On this mission, when real danger comes, the humans will fail. And everyone will see that I was right all along. Kira looked worried but said nothing. Aris smiled. It will not take long. Humans break easily. I am sure of it. But deep in her mind, in a place she did not want to acknowledge, a small voice whispered a question she could not answer. If humans were so weak, why had Hana won? The ship was called the Star of Allura, and it was beautiful. 300 feet of sleek silver metal, designed for speed and luxury rather than war. Princess Aris stood on the command deck, watching the stars blur past as they traveled through hyperspace toward Nexus Prime. Day 1 stood nearby, silent and still. He had been on the command deck for 6 hours without moving, without eating, without speaking, unless spoken to. Aris found it unnerving. Do you not need rest? She asked him. I rest when there is no danger, Princess, Day 1 replied. His voice was calm and flat. We are in hyperspace. There is no danger in hyperspace. There is always danger. Day 1's dark eyes scanned the various displays and monitors, especially when traveling through contested territory. Iris wanted to argue, but she held her tongue. Let the human waste his energy on paranoia. It would make his failure more obvious when nothing happened. But something did happen. On the third day of travel, the ship dropped out of hyperspace unexpectedly. Alarms blared throughout the corridors. Iris grabbed the edge of a console to steady herself as the ship shook violently. Report. She shouted to the ship's captain, a veteran Valorian named Cross. Gravity well-trapped, Princess. Someone pulled us out of hyperspace. Cross's fingers flew across his controls. Multiple ships approaching. Raiders by the look of them. Iris felt her heart race. Pirates were common in this region, but they rarely attacked Valorian vessels. The Empire's reputation usually kept them away. How many ships? Day One asked. He had moved to stand beside Cross, studying the sensor displays. 7, Cross said. No, 8. They are surrounding us? Armament? Plasma cannons, missile pods, boarding torpedoes. Cross looked up at Iris. Princess, we must jump back to hyperspace immediately. The gravity well is still active, Day One said. We cannot jump until it is destroyed. A communication channel opened, flooding the command deck with a harsh, crackling voice. Valorian vessel, you are surrounded. Surrender your ship and cargo. Resist and die. Iris felt anger burn through her fear. This is Princess Iris of the Valorian Empire. You dare threaten an Imperial vessel? The voice laughed. We dare much for the right price, Princess. Someone paid us very well to make sure you never reach Nexus Prime. Last chance. Surrender or burn. The channel cut off. Cross turned to Iris. Princess, we have 20 Valorian guards on board. These pirates have at least 300 warriors across 8 ships. We cannot win this fight. Day One touched his communication device. Hannah, status? Hannah's voice came back immediately. Team is ready. Taeyang is in the fighter bay. Sora has access to the main power grid. Myung is standing by for medical. Awaiting orders. What are you doing? Iris demanded. Day One ignored her. Hannah, can you access the pirate ship systems? Give me 2 minutes. You have 1 minute. Day One turned to Cross. When I give the signal, kill our external lights and rotate the ship 45 degrees starboard. That will expose our engine section, Cross said. I know. Iris grabbed Day One's arm. His skin felt warm compared to her cooler Valorian biology. You cannot order my ship's captain around. I am in command here. Day One looked at her hand on his arm, then up at her face. His expression did not change. Princess, with respect, you have never been in combat. I have been in combat 412 times. Let me do my job. 400. Iris released his arm. That is not possible. Humans live dangerous lives, Day One said. Then he turned back to his communication device. Hannah, I am in their systems. Their security is garbage. I can shut down 2 of their ships completely. The others will take longer. Shut down the 2 closest to our starboard side. On my mark. Day One looked at Cross. Captain, prepare for my signal. Cross looked at Iris. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to take command and show these humans how Valorians handled threats. But something in Day One's eyes stopped her. He was not afraid. He was not even worried. He was focused. Do it, Iris said quietly. The pirate ships opened fire. Plasma bolts struck the Star of Valor's shields, making the entire vessel shudder. The Valorian guards returned fire, but they were badly outnumbered. 2 pirate ships moved in close, preparing to launch boarding torpedoes. Now, Day One said. Cross killed the external lights and rotated the ship. Everything went dark except for the emergency lights. Iris heard several Valorian officers shouting confusion. Two of the pirate ships went completely dead. Their lights died. Their engines stopped. They drifted helplessly in space. "Taiyang, you are clear for launch," Day One said from the fighter bay beneath the command deck. A single small ship launched. It was a human design, barely 20 feet long, with engines that glowed bright blue. The pilot was Taiyang, one of Day One's team members. Aris watched on the displays as the tiny fighter dove toward the nearest pirate ship. It was insane. Suicidal. One small fighter against a ship 50 times its size. But Taiyang did not attack the big ship. He flew straight at the gravity well generator, a spherical device floating between the pirate vessels. He fired 2 missiles at point-blank range, then pulled up so sharply that Aris heard several Valorian officers gasp that the gravity well generator exploded in a bright flash. "Hyperspace is available," Cross reported. His voice shocked. "Not yet," Day One said. Shut down 2 more ships." "Any 2. Done." 4 pirate ships now drifted helplessly. The remaining 4 started to panic. Aris could hear their communications channels as they shouted at each other, confused and angry. Taiyang's fighter weaved through the battle space like a dancer. He was impossibly fast, impossibly precise. He fired at pirate engines, weapon systems, communication arrays. Each shot hit exactly where it needed to. "Valorian guards, focus all fire on the lead pirate ship," Day One ordered. "You cannot give orders to my guards," Aris said, but the guards were already obeying. 20 Valorian plasma cannons concentrated their fire on a single target. The pirate ship's shields collapsed. Its hull began to crack. "Sura, overload the main power grid," Day One said. "Give us everything. This will damage our systems," Sora's voice replied over the communication channel. "I know. Do it anyway." The star of Valora's engines suddenly blazed with twice their normal power. The ship lurched forward, straight at the pirate formation. The pirates scattered, not expecting a luxury vessel to attack. Taiyang used the confusion to destroy another pirate ship's main engines. It began spinning out of control. "Anna, restore power to the 2 ships on our port side," Day One said. "What? Why?" Hana sounded confused for the first time. "Trust me." The 2 disabled pirate ships suddenly came back online. But they were facing the wrong direction, and their crews were panicking. They opened fire on instinct, hitting their own allies instead of the Valorian ship. Chaos erupted in the pirate formation. Ships fired on each other. Some tried to retreat. Others tried to regroup. "Now, Captain Cross," the one said calmly. "Jump to hyperspace." Cross slammed his hand on the hyperspace controls. The star of Valora's engines screamed, and reality twisted around them. The stars blurred. The pirate ships vanished. They were safe. The command deck was silent for a long moment. Then, the Valorian officers began to cheer. They shouted and celebrated, clapping each other on the shoulders. Ari stood frozen. She had watched the entire battle, and she still could not believe it. 12 humans had defeated 8 pirate ships carrying hundreds of warriors. They had done it in less than 5 minutes. They had done it without losing a single person. Day One touched his communication device. All team members report status. One by one, his people reported in. No injuries. No damage. Mission successful. Day One turned to Aris. "Princess, the ship is secure. You may return to your quarters if you wish." Aris found her voice. "How did you do that?" "Do what, Princess?" "Win. You were outnumbered 50 to 1. You had 1 small fighter against 8 warships. You should have lost." That man's expression softened slightly. It was not quite a smile, but close. "Humans do not fight fair, Princess. We fight to win. There's a difference." He walked away, already talking with Hana about system repairs. Aris returned to her quarters in a daze. Kira was waiting for her, worried and relieved. "I heard there was an attack," Kira said. "Are you hurt?" "No," Aris said. She sat down heavily on her bed. "The humans saved us." "The humans? Not the Valorian guards?" "The guards helped. But the humans—" Aris shook her head. "I do not understand, Kira. They are so small, so weak. How do they fight like that?" Kira had no answer. That night, Aris could not sleep. She kept replaying the battle in her mind. She kept seeing Taeyang's impossible flying. She kept hearing Day One's calm voice, giving orders while death flew all around them. Maybe, she thought, maybe she had been wrong about humans. But she pushed the thought away. One battle proved nothing. Luck could explain what happened. Or perhaps the pirates had been incompetent. Yes, she decided. That must be it. The pirates were simply bad at their job. That it had nothing to do with human strength. Nexus Prime was beautiful and chaotic in equal measure. The planet sat at the border of 3 different territories, belonging to no empire and hosting all travelers. Its capital city was a maze of markets, temples, and diplomatic centers where every species in the galaxy seemed to gather. Princess Aris walked through the crowded streets with her escort of Valorian guards and human mercenaries. People stopped to stare at her silver skin and royal bearing. She ignored them, focusing instead on the upcoming negotiations. The trade talks would take place over 5 days. Boring, technical discussions about tariffs and shipping routes. Aris hated politics, but it was her duty as heir to the Valorian throne. On the second day, during a break in negotiations, Aris found herself alone in the delegation's private quarters. Most of her guards were on patrol. The diplomats were preparing documents. She was about to pour herself a drink when someone knocked on her door. "Enter," she called. Sora stepped inside. The human engineer looked small in the large Valorian-sized room. She carried a datapad and wore an expression of nervousness. "Princess, I hope I am not disturbing you," Sora said. "What do you want?" Aris asked, not unkindly. "I was asked to deliver the security reports for your review." Sora held out the datapad. Aris took it and glanced at the information. Everything looked routine. "Thank you. You may go." But Sora did not leave. She stood there, shifting her weight from foot to foot. "Was there something else?" Aris asked. "May I ask you a question, Princess?" Aris was surprised. Humans rarely spoke to her unless necessary. "You may. Why do you hate us?" The question was so direct, so unexpected, that Aris almost dropped the datapad. "I do not hate you. You look at us like we are insects," Sora said quietly. "You speak about us as if we are not in the room. You think we are weak and useless." Aris felt her face grow warm. She wanted to deny it, but the human was right. "I judge based on what I see. Humans are small. You have no natural defenses. You are fragile." "That is true," Sora agreed. "We are all those things. But we are still here, still alive, still fighting. Do you know why?" "Luck?" Sora smiled. It was a sad smile. "I will tell you a story about my homeworld, Earth. Humans almost went extinct 7 times in our history. Ice ages covered our planet in frozen death. Volcanic eruptions blocked out our sun for years. Diseases killed millions. Predators hunted us when we were still living in caves. Many species face hardships," Aris said. "Yes, but most species evolved to survive those hardships. They grew stronger bodies, thicker skin, better weapons." Sora tapped her own chest. "Humans did not. We stayed weak. We stayed fragile. But we learned something else." "What?" "We learned to refuse defeat. No matter how many times we fell, we stood back up. No matter how impossible the enemy, we found a way to win. We are not strong because our bodies are powerful, princess. We are strong because we never, ever give up. Ares had no response to that. Sora bowed politely and left the room, leaving the princess alone with her thoughts. That evening, there was a formal dinner hosted by the Neutral Council. Ares wore her finest robes and sat at the high table with the other important delegates. Day One and his team stood along the walls, watching everything as always. Councillor Vareth was also at the dinner. The ambitious Valorian noble had traveled to Nexus Prime separately, claiming he wanted to observe the negotiations. But Ares knew the truth. Vareth opposed the trade agreement. He wanted it to fail. Halfway through the dinner, Vareth stood and raised his glass. "A toast," he announced loudly, "to the Valorian Empire and our superior strength." Everyone drank politely, but Ares saw the trap coming. Vareth turned to look directly at Day One. "It is unfortunate that our great empire must rely on human mercenaries for protection. Surely, Valorian warriors would serve better." The room went quiet. All eyes turned to Day-1. Day One's expression did not change. "Valorian warriors are indeed formidable, Counselor. And yet Princess Ares chose humans instead." Vareth smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Perhaps she doubts our strength. Or perhaps the humans fooled her into thinking they are capable warriors." Ji Wu, the human diplomat, stepped forward. "Counselor Vareth, this is not the place for such discussions." "On the contrary," Vareth said, "this is exactly the place. Let us settle the question once and for all. I challenge the human captain to a formal duel. Valorian against human. We will see who is truly strong." Ares stood immediately. "Counselor, you overstep your bounds. I forbid this." "You cannot forbid a formal challenge, princess. It is Valorian law." Vareth's eyes gleamed with triumph. "Unless the human is too afraid to accept?" Day One walked forward slowly. His black armor made no sound. He stopped in front of Vareth and looked up at the massive Valorian noble. Vareth was nearly 9 feet tall, covered in thick natural armor and heavily muscled. Day One looked like a child standing before him. "I accept your challenge," Day One said. Ares wanted to scream. Valorian duels were fought with energy blades and minimal armor. They were brutal and often ended in death. Day One could not possibly survive against Vareth. The duel was set for the next morning in the public arena. News spread quickly through the city. By dawn, thousands of spectators had gathered to watch a Valorian noble fight a human mercenary. Ares stood in the royal viewing box, her hands gripping the rail so tightly her knuckles turned white. Kira stood beside her, equally worried. "He will die," Ares whispered. "Perhaps not," Kira said without conviction. Vareth entered the arena first, wearing light armor and carrying a blue energy blade that hummed with deadly power. The crowd cheered his name. Day One entered second, wearing even lighter armor and carrying a simple metal blade with no energy enhancement. The crowd went silent, confused by his choice of weapon. "He is not even using proper equipment," Ares said. "What is he thinking?" The duel master raised his hand. "This is a formal challenge under Valorian law. The fight continues until one combatant yields or dies. Begin." Vareth charged immediately, his energy blade cutting through the air where Day One's head had been a moment before. Day One had already moved, rolling to the side and coming up in a defensive stance. The pattern repeated. Vareth attacked with overwhelming power and speed. Day One avoided every strike by the smallest possible margin. He never tried to block directly. He never stood still. "He fights like a coward," someone in the crowd shouted. But Ares was beginning to see something else. Day One was not running away. He was studying Vareth, learning his patterns, waiting for something. Vareth grew frustrated. He began making wider, more aggressive strikes. His technique became sloppy. Day One struck for the first time. His metal blade caught Vareth across the back of the knee, where the natural armor was thinnest. Vareth stumbled as the crowd gasped. Vareth roared in anger and spun around, his energy blade cutting a deadly arc. Day One was already gone, now on Vareth's other side. He struck again, this time at Vareth's weapon arm. The cut was shallow but precise. For 10 minutes, the fight continued this way. Vareth attacking with brutal power. Day One cutting him slowly, carefully, methodically. 1,000 small wounds instead of one killing blow. But Vareth was still stronger, still faster. One of his strikes finally connected, catching Day One across the shoulder. The energy blade burned through armor and flesh. Day One fell to one knee. "Yield!" Vareth shouted. "Yield, and I will spare your life." Day One looked up at him. Blood ran down his arm. His face was pale with pain, but his eyes were clear and hard. "No," Day One said. He threw a handful of sand into Vareth's eyes. The crowd roared in anger. "Dishonorable! Cheating!" While Vareth was blinded, Day One swept his legs out from under him. The massive Valorian fell hard. Before he could recover, Day One had his metal blade pressed against Vareth's throat. "Yield," Day One said quietly. Vareth's face was purple with rage, but he could not move. The blade pressed against his jugular vein. "I yield," Vareth spat. Day One stood and stepped back. The duel master declared him the winner, but half the crowd was shouting in protest. Throwing sand was not honorable. Using the environment was not honorable. This was not how Valorians fought. Aris pushed through the crowd and confronted Day One as he left the arena. "You cheated. You dishonored yourself and humanity." Day One's shoulder was still bleeding. Myung, the human medic, was trying to treat it, but Day One waved her away. "I won," Day One said to Aris. "By breaking the rules." "What rules?" Day One's voice was hard now. "Vareth tried to kill me. This was not a sport, princess. This was a fight to the death. In a real fight, there is only one rule: survive. We have codes of honor." Aris shouted. "We have traditions that separate us from animals." "Then you are fools," Day One said flatly. "Honor does not keep you alive. Tradition does not protect your people. Victory does. Only victory." He walked away, leaving Aris standing in the crowded street. That night, Jiwoo came to Aris's quarters. The diplomat looked tired but determined. "Princess, I must apologize for Captain Day One's behavior," Jiwoo said. "He humiliated Vareth. He humiliated all Valorians with his dishonorable tactics." Jiwoo nodded slowly. "I understand your anger, but please try to understand our perspective. Humans have no natural advantages. We cannot match your strength or speed or armor. If we fight honorably, we die. So we learn to fight smart instead. That is no excuse." "Perhaps not," Jiwoo agreed. "But consider this, princess." Vareth challenged Day One, knowing he would win easily. The negotiations ended successfully on the 5th day. Princess Aris signed the trade agreement alongside representatives from 12 different species. Counselor Vareth had left Nexus Prime the day after his duel, humiliated and angry. Iris was glad to see him gone. Now she stood on the bridge of the Imperial yacht that would carry her home to Valora. It was a smaller ship than the Star of Valora, more luxurious and faster. Only essential personnel were aboard. 10 Valorian royal guards, the flight crew, her personal servants, and the 12 human mercenaries. "We will reach Valora in 4 days," Captain Cross reported. He had been assigned to this ship as well at Aris's request. She trusted him after the pirate attack. "The route is clear and safe." "No route is ever truly safe," Day One said from his position near the weapons console. He had barely spoken to Aris since the duel 3 days ago. Aris wanted to talk to him, to explain why his tactics had upset her, to understand his perspective better. But every time she tried, the words caught in her throat. Pride and confusion warred inside her. The first day of travel passed without incident. Aris spent most of it in her quarters, reading reports and avoiding the humans. Kira brought her meals and kept her company. "You should speak with Captain Day One," Kira said during dinner. "Why would I do that?" "Because you have been thinking about him constantly since the duel." "I can tell." Kira smiled gently. "You are not angry anymore, Princess. You are curious." Aris threw a pillow at her attendant, but Kira was right. The anger had faded, replaced by a strange fascination. How did humans think so differently from Valorians? How did they survive when everything in the galaxy was stronger than them? She fell asleep that night with those questions spinning through her mind. The alarm woke her hours later. A piercing shriek that meant immediate danger. Aris rolled out of bed and grabbed the plasma pistol she kept in her nightstand. She was wearing only her sleeping clothes, but there was no time to change. She opened her door carefully and looked into the corridor. Bodies. 3. Valorian guards lay dead in pools of their own blue blood. Their throats had been cut so quickly and quietly that they never raised an alarm. Aris felt ice flood her veins. Assassins. On her ship. She heard footsteps approaching and ducked back into her room. Pistol raised. But it was Hana who appeared, moving silently through the shadows. The human woman had a blade in each hand, both wet with blood. "Princess, stay behind me," Hana whispered urgently. "We have multiple hostiles on board. Professional killers." "How many?" "At least 15. They killed most of the Valorian guards while they slept. We need to get you to the secure panic room." They moved through the corridors together, Hana leading the way. Aris had trained in combat her entire life, but she had never seen killing like this. Bodies appeared every few meters. Guards who had been murdered in their beds. Crew members who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. An assassin stepped out of a side corridor, raising a silenced weapon. Anna threw one of her knives without breaking stride. It hit the assassin in the eye. He fell without making a sound. They reached the panic room, a reinforced chamber near the center of the ship. Day One was already there with Taeyang and Sora. His shoulder, still bandaged from the duel, had blood seeping through the wrappings. "Status?" Day One asked Hana. 7 hostiles confirmed dead. At least 8 still active. "They are trying to reach the panic room. They know where it is," Day One said grimly. "This was planned. Someone gave them our ship's layout." Aris felt sick. "A traitor? On my crew?" "We will worry about that later." Day One checked his weapons. "Right now we need to survive." Hana sealed the panic room door. "Everyone else, prepare for a siege." "We cannot stay here," Sora said. "They will cut through the door eventually. Or vent the atmosphere. Or use explosives." "I know," Day One said. "But we need to buy time. Myung and Ji Woo are securing the engine room. If they can restore communications, we can call for help." An explosion rocked the ship. Aris grabbed a support beam to keep from falling. "They are getting impatient," Taeyang said. The panic room door began to glow red as something on the other side started cutting through it. The assassins were not waiting for a clever solution. They were going to burn their way inside. Day One looked at the door, then at Aris. "Princess, I need you to trust me." "Can you do that?" Aris met his eyes. She thought about the pirate battle, the duel, everything she had seen humans do in the past week. "Yes. Good. When that door opens, stay low and stay behind me. No matter what happens." He turned to his team. "Hana, left flank. Taeyang, right flank. Sora, protect the princess if I fall. If you fall, we all fall. Hana said quietly. Day One smiled. It was not a happy smile. Then I will not fall. The door exploded inward in a shower of molten metal. Assassins poured through the opening, at least 6 of them, armed with advanced weapons and wearing combat armor. Day One charged straight at them. It was insane, suicidal. 6 professional killers with superior weapons and armor against 1 wounded human with a plasma rifle. But Day One did not fight them head-on. He dove and rolled, using the panic room's furniture as cover. His first shot took down an assassin's shields. His second shot killed that same assassin before the shields could regenerate. Hana and Taeyang attacked from the sides, forcing the assassins to split their attention. The small panic room became a chaotic battlefield of plasma fire and close combat. An assassin broke through and aimed at Aris. Sora tackled her to the ground just as plasma bolts tore through the space where she had been standing. The human engineer was tiny compared to Aris, but her weight and momentum were enough to save the princess's life. Aris fired her pistol from the ground, hitting the assassin 3 times. His armor absorbed the first 2 shots, but the third burned through and killed him. She had just killed someone. The reality of it hit her like a physical blow. She had trained for combat, but training was different from the real thing. Stay focused, Day One shouted. He had been shot in the leg, but was still fighting. 3 assassins lay dead around him. 3 more were trying to kill him from different angles. Then Myung's voice came over the ship's communication system. Communications restored. Sending distress signal. The assassins heard it too. They knew they were running out of time. One of them pulled out a thermal grenade, the kind that can vaporize everything in a 20-foot radius. Grenade! Hana screamed. Day One did not hesitate. He ran straight at the assassin with the grenade, taking 2 plasma bolts to the chest in the process. His armor held, barely. He tackled the assassin, and they both crashed through the weakened panic room door into the corridor beyond. The grenade exploded. No. Aris screamed. She tried to run after him, but Sora held her back. When the smoke cleared, both Day One and the assassin lay on the floor. The assassin was clearly dead, his body torn apart by the explosion. Day One was not moving. The remaining assassins tried to press their attack, but Hana and Taeyang fought like demons. Within minutes, the last assassins were dead or fleeing. Aris pushed past Sora and ran to Day One. His armor was scorched and cracked. His chest barely moved with each breath. The bandages on his shoulder were soaked with fresh blood. The leg wound was worse, and now burns covered half his body. Meow. Aris screamed into the communication system. Medical emergency. Now. The medic arrived within seconds, carrying equipment. She immediately began working on Day One, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. How bad is it? Aris asked. Bad, Myung said, without looking up. Plasma burns, internal bleeding, possible organ damage. He needs a real medical facility. How is he still alive? Aris whispered. Any Valorian would have died from wounds like this. Because he is Day One, Myung said simply. He does not know how to quit. For the next hour, Myung worked to stabilize him. Aris stayed the entire time, watching. She kept thinking about what he had done. He had run toward the grenade, not away from it. He had protected her and everyone else in the room by sacrificing himself. No Valorian warrior would have done that. They would have fought honorably, perhaps even won. But they would not have thrown themselves on a grenade. Finally, Myung sat back. Her hands were covered in Day One's blood. He will live, probably. But he needs rest and proper treatment. Can he be moved? Aris asked. Not safely. We need to keep him here until we reach Valora. Aris stood. Then we will reach Valora as fast as possible. I will tell Captain Cross to push the engines beyond safety limits." She ran to the bridge and gave the order. Cross did not argue. He had lost half his crew to the assassins. He wanted to get home as much as anyone. Ares returned to the medical bay and sat beside Day One's unconscious form. Hannah was already there, cleaning her weapons and keeping watch. "Why did he do it?" Ares asked. "Why did he run at the grenade?" Hannah looked at her princess with tired eyes. "Because you were still in danger. But he could have died. He almost did die. Yes. That makes no sense. I am not worth his life. I am just a princess. He is irreplaceable," Hannah suggested. "Valuable? Important?" She shook her head. Day One would disagree. He believes every life is worth protecting, especially those who cannot protect themselves. Ares looked at the burned, broken human lying on the medical bed. He was small, weak, fragile. The Imperial yacht limped into Valora's orbit 3 days later. Emergency medical teams were waiting when they docked. They rushed Day One to the palace's advanced medical center, where Valorian doctors worked alongside Myung to save his life. Princess Aris did not leave the medical center for 2 days. She slept in a chair outside his room and ate only when Kira forced her to. Emperor Theron visited once, spoke briefly with his daughter, and left without asking questions. He understood grief and worry, even if he did not fully understand their cause. On the 3rd day, Day One woke up. Aris was in the room when his eyes opened. She had been reading reports about the investigation into the assassination attempt, trying to distract herself. "Princess," Day One said. His voice was rough and weak. Aris nearly dropped her datapad. She moved to his bedside quickly. "Do not speak. You need rest." "I have been resting for 3 days," Day One said. He tried to sit up, grimaced in pain, and lay back down. "Report." "You are impossible," Aris said, but she smiled. "The investigation is ongoing. We know the assassins were professionals hired by someone in the Valorian government. Someone who wants the trade agreement to fail. Someone who wants me dead." "Vareth," Day One said immediately. "We think so too, but we have no proof yet." Aris touched his hand carefully. "You should focus on healing, not investigations." Day One looked at where her hand rested on his. "You stayed with me." "Of course I did. You saved my life. That is my job. Your job is to protect me, not to throw yourself on grenades." Aris felt tears forming and blinked them away angrily. "You could have died, but I did not. That is not the point." Aris stood and paced the room. "I do not understand you. I do not understand any humans. You are weak and fragile, but you do impossible things. You should have died 12 times, but you are still here." "How?" Day One watched her pace. "We refuse to accept defeat. It is that simple." "It is not simple at all. It is—" An alarm blared throughout the palace. Aris and Day One both froze. Captain Cross's voice came over the communication system. "All personnel to battle stations. Unknown fleet emerging from hyperspace. This is not a drill." Aris ran to the window and looked up at the sky. Even from the ground, she could see the bright flashes as dozens of ships appeared in orbit. Large ships. Military vessels. Her personal communicator buzzed. It was her father. "Aris, come to the war room immediately." She looked back at Day One. He was already trying to get out of bed, despite his injuries. "You cannot fight," Aris said. "You can barely stand. Then I will fight sitting down." Day One's expression was determined. "Your empire is under attack. I am still under contract to protect you." They made their way to the war room together, Day One leaning heavily on Aris for support. When they arrived, Emperor Theron and his military advisors were gathered around a holographic display of the orbital battlefield. Theron looked at his daughter, then at the wounded human beside her. "Captain Day 1, you should be in bed." "With respect, Emperor, there will be time for beds after we survive this attack." Theron almost smiled. "Your dedication is admirable. What can you tell us about this fleet?" Aris helped Day 1 to a chair where he could see the display. He studied it for a long moment. 43 ships, Day 1 said. Military configuration. They have surrounded Valora completely. This is a siege force, not a raiding party. Can we defeat them? Theron asked his military commanders. The commanders looked uncertain. Our fleet is scattered across the Empire. We have perhaps 20 ships in orbit. We are outnumbered 2 to 1. A communication channel opened. Counselor Vareth's face appeared on the main display. He was wearing military armor and standing on the bridge of one of the attacking ships. "Greetings, Emperor Theron," Vareth said. His voice was cold and triumphant. "I am sure you are surprised to see me." "Vareth," Theron said quietly. "You dare attack your own empire?" "I dare much for the future of Valora. You have grown weak, Emperor. You make deals with inferior species. You rely on human mercenaries instead of Valorian strength. You disgrace our people, so you betray your people instead?" "I save them," Vareth snapped. "I have the support of 40 noble houses and half the military. Surrender Princess Aris to me. Abdicate your throne. Allow true Valorians to lead our empire into a stronger future. And if I refuse, then I will destroy this planet and everyone on it. You have 1 hour to decide." The communication cut off. The war room erupted in shouting. Advisors argued about whether to fight or negotiate. Military commanders discussed defensive positions and evacuation plans. Everyone talked at once. Day 1's quiet voice cut through the chaos. "Emperor, if I may?" The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the small, wounded human sitting in the corner. "Speak," Theron said. "Vareth has made a mistake. He has surrounded your planet completely, which means his forces are spread thin. He expects you to either surrender or defend. He does not expect you to attack. Attack with 20 ships against 43? One of the military commanders laughed. "That is suicide." "No," Day 1 said. "It is a winning strategy. If you do it correctly." He looked at Aris. "I will need your permission to bring my full team into this planning session. And I will need access to your military command systems." Aris looked at her father. Theron nodded. Within minutes, all 12 humans were in the war room. Ji Wu, Hana, Taeyang, Sora, Myung, and the others Aris had barely spoken to. They gathered around the holographic display while Day 1 explained his plan. "Vareth's flagship is here." Day 1 pointed to a large vessel at the center of the enemy formation. "If we can capture or destroy it, the rest of his fleet will lose coordination. Many will probably surrender. The flagship is protected by 10 other vessels," a Valorian commander said. "We cannot reach it." "We do not need to reach it with ships," Day 1 said. "We need to board it. A small team, fast insertion, kill or capture Vareth, broadcast his defeat to demoralize his forces." "Who would be on this team?" Theron asked. "My people and a few Valorian volunteers." Day 1 looked at Aris, "Including the princess, if she is willing." Every Valorian in the room started shouting at once. Aris could not go on such a dangerous mission. She was the heir to the throne. It was too risky. Aris raised her hand, and the room fell quiet. "I will go." "Aris, no," Theron said. "Father, Vareth wants me dead or captured. He will keep attacking until he gets what he wants. I am already a target. I might as well be a useful target." She turned to Day 1. "What is the plan?" Day 1 explained the details. The Valorian fleet would engage Verith's forces directly, creating chaos and drawing attention. While the battle raged, a small stealth ship piloted by Taeyang would approach the flagship from its blind spot. The boarding team would infiltrate, fight their way to the bridge, and broadcast Verith's defeat. It was insane. The odds of success were perhaps 1 in 10, but it was better than surrender or certain destruction. Thuron looked at his daughter for a long moment. Then he sighed. I have always known this day would come. The day you would risk everything for your people. I just hoped it would be later. He turned to Day 1. Captain, if my daughter dies on this mission, I will hold you personally responsible. Understood. Emperor. 6 hours later, Ari stood in the armory, putting on combat armor for the first time in her life. Hana helped her adjust the straps and check the weapon systems. You do not have to do this, Hana said. We could complete the mission without you. No, you could not, Aris replied. Verith's troops will not surrender to humans. They need to see a member of the royal family. They need to see me. Hana smiled. You are learning how humans think. I am learning that survival is more important than pride. The boarding team consisted of 12 people, all of Day 1's human mercenaries. Aris and 3 volunteer Valorian soldiers. Day 1 himself was still too injured to fight effectively, but he insisted on coming anyway. I can shoot a gun sitting down, he said when Myung tried to stop him. That is all I need to do. The stealth ship was cramped with 15 people aboard. Taeyang flew them through the orbital battlefield, weaving between massive ships exchanging plasma fire. The Valorian fleet was taking heavy casualties, but holding their ground. 2 minutes to the flagship, Taeyang announced. Hold on, this is going to be rough. The flagship's point defense systems opened fire as they approached. Taeyang performed maneuvers that made Aris's stomach twist. Plasma bolts passed, so close she could see them through the viewport. They latched onto the flagship's hull with magnetic clamps. Sora immediately began cutting through the armor plating with a plasma torch. 30 seconds until we are through, Sora said. Aris checked her weapon one last time. She had trained for combat her entire life, but this was different. This was real. Lives depended on her not failing. Breach in 3, 2, 1. The hull plating fell away. The boarding team poured through the opening into a maintenance corridor. Alarms blared immediately. They had been detected. Enemy soldiers appeared at both ends of the corridor. The fight began instantly. Plasma bolts filled the air. 2 Valorian volunteers fell in the first 10 seconds. Hana and Ji-woo provided covering fire while the team advanced. They fought through 3 corridors, losing 1 more Valorian soldier and nearly losing Myung when a grenade exploded too close. Aris killed 4 enemy soldiers herself. Each death became easier then.